so interested to see where this is going to go. I can't wait. What a weekend of reading! Good morning, how are you doing? It is the weekend and I'm so excited because all I have to do this weekend is read, which I'm really looking forward to. I've got a few books on my TBR that I would like to read. I'm not sure I'll get through a few this weekend, but I want to make my way through my TBR and I thought it'd be nice to bring you along with me, share my thoughts about the books I'm reading and just have a nice cozy weekend. I asked on my BookTok account what book I should start with. I had a couple of options in mind. There was a Claire Douglas book, the second book of the Pumpkin Spice Cafe series. What was my other one? I had a few options and the one that was highly recommended was The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Actually, when I started posting on BookTok, I asked for recommendations of favourite books and this one was commented several times. So it's been on my TBR for a good few months and I've been kind of getting into thriller books more this year. I've read a lot of Claire Douglas books, actually another Freida McFadden book, and I've really been getting into that genre. I like the fast pace of it. I like when a book really grips me and I can't predict what's going to happen. I just really like those parts of reading a thriller. So I'm excited to finally get to this book because I just feel like I know it's going to be a good one. I really hope that it lives up to everybody's recommendations, but I'm sure it will because I actually haven't heard a bad review of this book. So from what I understand about the description of this book, it follows our main character who is a housemaid to the Winchester family, and Nina Winchester, who I believe is the mum and the wife in the family, she has a little bit of a strange way about her. It says that she tells strange lies about her own daughter, so there's obviously some difficult dynamics going on within the family, but still the housemaid is really intrigued by her life, what it must be like to live in this beautiful home and have all these fancy cars and fancy clothes. And it says, I only try on one of Nina's pristine white dresses once, but she soon finds out, and by the time I realise my bedroom door only locks from the outside, it's far too late. But the Winchesters don't know who I really am. They don't know what I'm capable of. It sounds really good. I can't wait to read. Let's get started. I think I'm going to start reading in my reading nook this morning. That would make sense. And then I'll probably mix up where I'm reading this afternoon. But for now, I'm so excited to start this book. Okay, I'm currently just about to start chapter 12. I'm on page 66 and already I'm pretty gripped by this book. First thing that I really loved is that it started with a prologue, which I always feel like I say this in videos, but I love a prologue and I love an epilogue, and so I was really pleased to see a prologue at the start of this book. I love when a prologue is either a flash in the past or a flash into the future, and this one was a flash into the future, and then the main book started, I think it was 3 months earlier. Yeah, 3 months earlier. So I really like that because now I've got the prologue in mind. I'm just really intrigued by how we'll get to the point that we saw in the prologue, and it was quite a gripping prologue. I actually, thinking about it now, I don't know whose perspective it was written from, whether it's written from the same perspective. I think it is. I think it's the same perspective as our main character Millie in this book. I actually don't know, so I wonder if that is Millie. There's something interesting going on with Nina, who is the mother that I mentioned, the wife of the family, the Winchester family that she's working for. She's got a really interesting personality in that she's one way one minute, one way the next. I can't tell whether she's deliberately misleading or trying to confuse Millie, or whether there's something more to her story that's kind of causing that. So that's a really interesting dynamic. And I'm also really interested by the daughter, who's called Cecilia. She has a bit of a spoilt personality, but I feel like there's something more to her as well. I basically feel like there's something more to every one of our characters. Even Millie, who is the main character, she has a history that she's kind of opening up about, but we don't know the details about yet, so I'm interested to know more about that. What it's doing really well is hinting at things that are a bit strange, or maybe even just that there are questions around what's going on. I'm really enjoying those hints and the potential foreshadowing as well, which I love in a thriller. The plot is still very much building. Something dramatic hasn't happened in chapter 1. We are kind of building and collecting puzzle pieces along the way, but it still doesn't feel slow paced because of that. We're now a week into Millie working for the Winchester family, and little moments have been happening along the way. Like I said, they feel like puzzle pieces that we're picking up to try and understand along with Millie what is going on in the Winchester family. So it doesn't feel slow paced because I'm really curious about little things in every single chapter. Yeah, so far so good. I can see why people like this. I feel like it's intriguing. That's the feeling that I have when I'm reading this book. I'm really intrigued by not only the storyline and the plot, but the characters themselves. So back to reading. So interested to see where this is going to go. I actually don't really have any predictions. I have kind of thoughts about the foreshadowing and what that might mean, but I feel like there's going to be twists along the way that we just don't expect. Reading The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. It's about this woman who gets a new job as a housemaid to this wealthy family, and the mother of the family just has started doing kind of strange things. Good, I think you'd like it. It's like a thriller. Yeah, it's good so far. It was very recommended. Okay, I'm pretty much about halfway through this book. I've just kept reading and kept reading because it's really gripping me, and I've just got to the end of a very tense chapter. I'm about to start chapter 31, which is page 157. I was going to flick and see how many pages there were in this book, but I don't want to see any spoilers. What I'm really loving is there are some dynamics that I literally just wasn't expecting. I was really expecting us to focus in on Millie and Nina, so I was really expecting that, and that is kind of the main focus of the book. Whether it's Millie's dynamic with Andrew, who is the father and husband of the family, or her dynamic with the daughter, I'm just finding it really interesting, and there's clearly things that people are holding back. So in a conversation somebody will go to say something and the sentence will end mid-sentence, so there's clearly a lot of secrecy, a lot of things not being said, and it's adding to a lot of tension because I feel like all the characters don't really know what each other know about each other, especially at this point in the book, in the chapter that I've just finished. I'm really interested to see what will happen next. It feels like we're building to a bit of a turning point in the dynamic between Nina and Millie. I don't know when that's going to happen. I thought it was going to happen quite a lot earlier in the book, but it hasn't. At the moment there's that secrecy or confusion about who knows what and what is going on, and I feel like there will be a point in this book where everything is revealed. I'm expecting it to be quite dramatic, so we'll see what happens. But I'll of course keep you updated. I'm so excited to keep reading. when I was saying in one of the last clips that I was waiting for kind of a big reveal to happen in the book, we have very much had the big reveal and I really didn't see it coming. I also didn't take note at the start, but this book has been split into 3 parts. Or I'm just about to start part 3 and I'm pretty near the end, so I presume it's just 3 parts. And I really like that structure because the difference between part 1 and part 2 in terms of what's revealed to us is pretty big, and it makes for a really good reveal in the book. I'm really interested in part 3 now because we don't have that long to go. I'm on page 270 now, so I'm really intrigued. I feel like we kind of very much know what is happening now in the book, and so I'm really interested in this last part if there's going to be any more reveals, if there's going to be any more plot twists, is something else going on that we don't know about yet, or if it's more of kind of bringing everything together and creating an ending that makes sense with what we know so far. I'm thinking I might be able to finish this book tonight, so I think that says a lot for how much I'm enjoying the writing. It's very gripping. Finished The Housemaid by Freida McFadden last night. That is honestly the quickest I've read a book in, I don't even know the last day that I read a book in a day, and it's purely because I couldn't put it down. I really did find it a real page turner. I think there are a few reasons why. It was the short chapters, or the shorter chapters than I am used to in books that I maybe have been reading over the past couple of months. I felt like that really kept the pages turning. Also the fact that it was split into 3 parts, which I only realised halfway through the book, but that definitely helped with the pacing, and also the switch up of perspective. So in part 1 we were looking at Millie, in part 2 we were looking at Nina, and then I think part 3 was both. Yes, it was both Nina and Millie. So because of that flicking between perspectives, which is something I always love in a book, I feel like that was really another reason why it felt so fast-paced and I read it so quickly. So update on the last bit of the book that I read. I would say that there weren't necessarily any big twists in that last part of the book. It was more kind of a bringing together and tying up any loose ends that were in the plot so far. So there wasn't necessarily a big twist towards the end, but because we'd had a big twist or 2 throughout the book, I don't think that mattered too much, but I do remember saying yesterday that I wondered whether there was a twist or not, so it's an interesting kind of ending to a thriller, I think, when there isn't that big twist. But that didn't affect things too much. I still enjoyed reading that part. Oh, also, a prologue and an epilogue is included in this book, which I'm a big fan of, so I was really glad to see that. So I was trying to think of what to rate this book, as I always do when I finish reading any book, and I think I've settled on 4 stars. I'm really glad it was recommended to me because, like I said, it's been a long time since I have read a book start to finish in one day, so I really enjoyed the experience of reading it, and yeah, very glad that it was recommended to me. I do want to read more Freida McFadden books as well, so if you've read any more, I would love to hear your recommendations of which one to pick up next. And now I think it's time to pick another book. What a weekend of reading! Okay, I think I've decided my next read, and it's going to be a Kindle read. Soon I'm going to Ireland on a family trip, and before I go I've been wanting to read a book that is set in Ireland, ideally by an Irish author, and just generally actually I would like to read more books from Irish authors because half my family's Irish, so I just feel quite connected to Ireland, so I would quite like to read more books set in Ireland, about Ireland, by Irish authors, or kind of a combination of the above. So with that in mind, of course, a very well-known Irish author is Sally Rooney. I love Normal People. I have watched that series so many times. I think I've even started reading the book at some point. I don't know why I never finished it, but I remember starting that book a few years ago. And I've looked around the house to try and find where that book is because I did have the physical copy and I can't find it anywhere. So I'm going to download it onto my Kindle and I'm going to read Normal People by Sally Rooney, which I'm so excited about. I feel like it's the perfect book for me to enjoy reading before my trip to Ireland. It's a very well-known story by now, obviously, because it was a very popular series, but just in case you haven't watched Normal People or read the book, the storyline follows Marianne and Connell, and they go to school together. They're both quite different people at school when we first meet them, and their experience of school is quite different, and we basically follow their relationship as they become friends, then more than friends, and through their college years. Speaking about this book is making me really look forward to reading it. Like I say, I'm such a fan of the series. I've watched it a good few times. I can't wait. I'm going to download it onto my Kindle and get started. So I'm a little bit of the way through, just a couple of chapters, and something that I'm really enjoying so far, and it's something I enjoyed actually when I was reading Little Women, which I know is quite a different book, but in the same way as I enjoyed it in Little Women, I really liked seeing how lines from the TV show, or I guess the movie with the Little Women, were originally written in the book. It's really interesting to see how they were adapted onto screen, what lines were maybe left out, what lines were added in, and so far I'm loving how true to the book the series seems to be. The lines are almost exactly the same so far. Obviously I'm just a few chapters in, so I'm going to carry on reading and I'll share any more thoughts that I've got. And it's actually a little bit later in the afternoon. I had a surprisingly busy morning, so I didn't read this morning. So my plan this evening is to have a nice cozy evening in, which I'll chat more about later. I want to do a couple of bookish things. Yeah, I mean, I'll chat about that later. So for now, I am just going to carry on reading. In fact, I might have to get a cup of tea. I think I've made a few cups of teas in this video so far, but it's just so nice to read with a cup of tea. So I guess let's go make another cup of tea. That was so nice to sit in the garden for half an hour or so and read. I do love reading in the garden at this time of year. I just find it really calming. I actually would like to make a reading playlist full of music that I can listen to whilst I read, because that's another thing that I really like to do in the summer, is listen to some music in the garden, and it would be quite nice to combine the two of those. I think I would need to find instrumental music, otherwise I would just probably get too distracted by the music to read. That's something that I definitely need to do. Actually, I think it might be something that I do this evening. I have another couple of bookish things that I'd like to do, but after I've done those I think I'll make that playlist. I've just decided. But back to this book, just before I start doing those bookish things, I am just loving it. I really am. I'm really glad that I decided to pick this one up. I'm finding it quite nostalgic because it's been how long since Normal People was released? Maybe 5 years, I guess. It was 2020, wasn't it? So I think around then. And I absolutely loved it at that time. So it's really nice to be revisiting this story. And I think because of that, it does have that little bit of a nostalgic feel to it, and I also feel like I'm getting new little parts of the story that maybe weren't included in the TV show. I mean, a lot of it is very much the same, of course, but there were a couple of lines here or there, or places where certain interactions happen might be different to how they happened in the TV show. Only a few things here and there so far have been a little bit different, but it's quite fun. It just means I am getting a bit of a newer look at a TV show that I love. So, and now, like I mentioned, I'm going to spend my evening doing a couple of bookish things that I've been wanting to do this weekend. Something that I'd really like to spend my time doing this evening is update my reading journal. I really enjoy the process when I finish a book of heading to Goodreads, heading to my reading journal and filling in my reviews, but sometimes for some reason I just might not finish writing down my review, so I just want to finish off any reviews. I also think there's a book or two, well there's definitely The Housemaid, to add to my Goodreads, and I just want to go through and see if there are any other books that I haven't finished a review of or fully written a review of yet, either on my Goodreads or my reading reading journal. I'm actually quite glad that my reading journal isn't fully up to date, because there's something about spending the next half hour to an hour putting something cosy on and spending some time writing about the books that I've been loving recently. I also, in a previous video, gave a very brief overview of what my reading journal looks like, but I thought I would insert a little bit of a deeper look, I guess. There's not too much to it, but I just wanted to show you in a little bit more detail how I've decided to lay out my reading journal if you're interested. So my reading journal itself is just from Amazon. I just found an A5 notebook that was lined and in a colour that I liked, and the sticker that is on the front of it is also one from a pack that I got on Amazon. And then in terms of what I use, it's pretty straightforward. I just use a selection of colourful pens. Each colour basically corresponds to a specific genre. So in terms of the reading journal itself, the first few pages are an overview, kind of like a reading log, and for each book I've read I will write the title and the author, followed by the start date and the end date, and then also the genre of the book. I'm really glad that I colour coded the genre actually, because it's really nice to be able to see in this overview which genres I'm reading more of, and I think it'll also be fun to see if this changes at all, and just to be able to see it instantly through how I've used the colours for the genre. So I just need to update this reading log with a couple of the latest books that I've read, and I've left quite a few pages, probably too many pages, in between that and the reading journal itself. So in terms of the reading journal itself, I've laid it out in a pretty straightforward way. I've just got, again, the title and the author. Under that I've put rating, so for Blue Sisters I gave it 4 stars. And I also did a summary of the plot because it's just a nice reminder. If it's a book, I've read this one I think in January, so it's just nice to be able to instantly remind myself what the book was about. And then underneath that I decided the way that I wanted to write my reading journal was just in one overall section titled My Thoughts. For me, I feel like this was the best way to do it because I didn't want to have to try and fit my thoughts into any categories or headers that were a bit too specific. I wanted to give a general title, so My Thoughts would work for every book, but then if I wanted to, underneath each book I could add some more specific categories if that made sense for the review that I wanted to give the book. So again, with this section of the reading journal, I'd just like to update it with a few of the books that I've read recently.